Hey, everybody. Welcome in. We're going to give everyone just a minute or so for folks to join. And per usual, while we wait, everyone drop in the chat where you're calling in from. So, for those of you who have attended any of my webinars in the past, you know that I'm based in New York City. And I think we've got some Kilo team members scattered all around the world. So, I'm always curious to see where everyone's tuning in from. I got my holiday lights up here. It's cold in New York. So I'm jealous of anyone that's in a warmer climate. Someone just said Florida, Athens. I wish I was there. Just going to give people another minute or so, and then we can get started. See Barcelona. All right, I think we can get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Brian. I'm a developer relations engineer here at Kilo. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to show a demo of us building something from scratch like we usually do when we have a webinar about a new, exciting model. Today, we're debugging. And I know debugging doesn't sound as glamorous as watch me build this app in one shot. But here's the thing, debugging is, according to some studies, up to 50% of what we actually do as developers, right? Maybe more for some people, especially in this age of AI engineering, where everyone is still kind of trying to figure out how to best incorporate AI into their coding workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and share some slides. Whoops. Started on the wrong one. Okay. So having a fast, efficient AI model handy that can actually help you find and fix bugs, that's kind of a game changer, right? So today we're going to go over why we like MiniMax M2 for debugging in particular, which is the latest model from the foundational lab, MiniMax. We'll take a Next.js and React game that has had 7 bugs planted into it intentionally, and we're going to use M2 to find and fix all of them live. And then we'll talk about what all of this means for developers, and I'll give everyone a chance to ask some questions as we usually do. So feel free to start dropping your thoughts and questions in the chat now, and I'll make sure I can get to as many as possible by the end of the session. So why MiniMax 2 for debugging, and what is it? So MiniMax M2, and I'm quoting their own messaging here, it was born for agents and code. And when we started testing it, we realized that this isn't just marketing speak. There's a reason that it ranks highly on benchmarks like the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, which incorporates 10 different benchmark evaluations on model intelligence, and why it's number 3 most used model in Kilo and has ranked as high as number 3 most used model in Open Router's programming category. So this is a model that people are using a lot. And we found that its users are pointing to a few use cases where they really feel that MiniMax M2 helps out in their workflow. Went too far. So here's the thing about debugging that makes it different from other coding tasks, right? When you're building something new from the ground up, you might gravitate towards a model that is known for really intensive reasoning capabilities, that spends a lot of effort in architecting solutions and developing these long horizon plans. And that's where a lot of folks, have an impulse to reach for these large frontier models like Gemini 3 or Claude Opus 4.5. But debugging is different. Debugging is about being fast, being precise, and being able to look at code and just see what's wrong. You don't necessarily need the model to philosophize about software architecture. You just need to find the bug and fix it. And I'm not saying that MiniMax M2 can't do those reasoning intensive tasks, because we've seen our users commend it in that arena as well. But because it's so fast, we found that it's especially useful for, and we've also heard from our customers that they enjoy using it for, debugging and smaller implementation tasks. So basically tasks that benefit from speed and efficiency. And if you needed another reason to give it a shot, MiniMax M2 is currently free in Kilo for a limited time. And in my opinion, that's a reason in itself to try it out. So before we get to our debugging session, we ran some internal tests with MiniMax M2, and my colleague Darko talked about this in a recent blog post that was posted, I believe, yesterday that you can read at blog.kilo.ai, where we planted bugs in a Go code base, things like concurrency issues, off by one errors, potential crashes. MiniMax M2 found all 4 bugs and it did it fast. The model doesn't sit there and think for 5 minutes before fixing the issue, looks at the code, identifies the problem, explains why it's a problem, and shows you the fix. So that's the workflow that I personally want when I'm debugging. And I already mentioned it's free right now, which is huge for this kind of work. But even when it's not free anymore, it costs less than 10% of what Claude Sonnet 4.5 costs. So if you're on a budget, this model is very relatively affordable for use in this kind of iterative back and forth debugging sessions that real development requires. And one of our users put it perfectly. And this is from an actual survey response that we received about MiniMax M2. They said GPT-5 is good but slow. So for faster interaction over smaller tasks, definitely using MiniMax M2. Someone else said they were able to debug issues by simply describing symptoms. It generates step-by-step fixes successfully. So that's exactly what we're looking for with AI-assisted engineering, right? That's the vibe. Fast iterations over smaller tasks. That's debugging in a nutshell. I'm just looking at the chat here. Someone said, I already enjoy having a model which name I can remember, not something like Minimax Go Ultra M2 high fast speed. That's actually a great point. Minimax M2 is a really succinct and aesthetic name, I have to admit. Someone else asked, how's the model for code generation? Well, I think it's great. I mean, we have other content about using Minimax M2 for all kinds of use cases. It is an AI coding agent at heart. So of course it's, built with generating code in mind. But we found that a lot of users have really specified that these debugging and implementation tasks are what really drew them to the model. So I think I'm going to do this new style of answering questions in line with the presentation. I think that makes it a little bit more interactive. So we can do that from now on. All right. So segment 2, the game and the bugs. So let me tell you about what we're working with today. If any of you have been to my previous webinars, and I feel like I say that sentence a lot, but you might recognize this, it's Kilo Man, our signature 2D platformer demo. So I've built this game multiple times with different models to test their capabilities. Last time we built it from scratch with the new stealth model called Spectre, which you can still use in Kilo for free right now. And this version that we're going to be debugging today was cloned from the one that we built in a live webinar a couple weeks ago with Google's Gemini 3 when that launched, which was like the very first version and the genesis of Kilo Man. So I'll show you what the working game looks like. But today we're going to take a version of the game that I've just torn apart. So I'm going to share my other tab here. Just give me a minute. So let's pull up this this working game, and I can pull it up here on a shareable live URL via a new feature that just launched called Kilo Deploy, shameless plug, which enables one-click deployment of Next.js apps directly from the Kilo dashboard. So you can connect your GitHub with a couple clicks from the integrations tab here, and then you can add a Next.js app to your GitHub as a repo, and then you can click add new deployment, locate the repo here, and launch to a shareable URL in seconds, basically. So this is the working version of Kilo Man. As you can see, just a basic 2D platformer, in the style of Super Mario or something similar. I think it's pretty aesthetic and pretty. I played this level like a million times, so I should not be dying that early. But this is just to give you an idea of what the game should look like, how it should work. We have this movement with these monsters and the jumping and the platforms and all of these game mechanics that you can kind of see from this example here. But the model or the version of Kilo Man that we're going to work with today is not this version. It's been torn apart. I planted 7 bugs in it. So, and these aren't like fake tutorial bugs. They are real bugs that a developer might actually encounter during real development and maybe would drive you crazy in a real code base. So Things like React hooks running on the server where they shouldn't, the game canvas rendering with the wrong dimensions, button clicks that appear to work but don't actually do anything, players spawning in the wrong spots, random JavaScript syntax issues, game engines that are subtly broken but really affect gameplay. And we're going to go through all 7 of these bugs, and we're also going to see how MiniMax M2 handles each one. So some of these are obvious once you know where to look. Others are sneaky, might just be like a trailing white space or missing parentheses. And since Next.js React is one of, if not the most common stack developed via Vibe engineering, I think this is a really relevant example and frankly a great litmus test for MiniMax M2's debugging ability. So we're going to try to go through each bug one by one, and I've laid them out in a way that is intended to reveal them in order, the same way maybe a user tester might encounter them when trying to play the game for the first time. Excuse me. But because AI coding is non-deterministic, meaning that we'll get different results each time, it's very possible that MiniMax M2 may identify or resolve multiple bugs at once. We don't exactly know how it'll respond to each of my prompts, but that's part of the fun, right? We're doing this live so we can get a real raw take at what MiniMax M2 can do. So let's get into it. I'm going to pull up the broken version of the game in VS Code. Okay. So we have the broken game here. It's just a clone of that game I just showed, but I manually implemented 7 random bugs throughout the process. And just to give you, some context about where we're starting, I'm going to run this locally now, and we're going to take a look at it in the browser, what it looks like in its current buggy state. So we're going to share screen. So as you can see, I've launched it in my browser, and here it is. So it's pretty ugly, right? We can't even open the game. We run into this broken app. We get this big ugly error, and we could just go to Kilo Code and say we don't know what's going on. There's an error, but I think one thing we could do is just copy and paste this error directly into Kilo Code, and we'll see if that's enough context for it to solve the issue. So let's just go ahead and grab this error. Switch back over to VS Code here. Finally realized I could share my whole desktop instead of unsharing and switching back to the other tabs. So that should help us out here. And we'll make sure that we have MiniMax M2 selected, which we do. And then we're going to pick debug mode. So if you don't already know, Kilo has 5 default specialized agent modes. There's architect for planning and designing your project before you implement. There's code, which is the default for writing and refactoring and implementing code. There's ask when you need questions answered without changing anything in your code base. And then there's orchestrator, which coordinates subtasks for the overall project across all of these different agents. And then what we're going to use is debug, which is an expert problem solver that handles systemic troubleshooting in order to resolve bugs and issues in the code. So it'll hopefully pair really well with MiniMax M2 here to walk us through addressing these bugs while providing explanations and resolutions. So we'll click debug mode, and we'll make sure we're in the right project, Kiloman bug. Yep. And we'll paste that ugly error we just saw. Okay, so it's thinking 2 seconds barely. Okay, and it's already got an issue it thinks it has here. And I hope you can all see my screen, but I'm gonna recite what's going on just in case you can't. So it said I can see the issue clearly. The game container file is using React hooks, use state, use effect, use ref, but the use client directive is missing. This causes Next.js to treat it as a server component, which can't use these hooks. So it's reading through the file here. It gave a debug mode, gave us this final analysis. After examining the code, I can see the root cause of the error. It's missing the use client directive, and it has a proposed fix. And then it asked us if we could fix, if it's okay, if it goes ahead and fixes it. So I said yes. It's thinking, and There it is. It's already editing the file. And notice, like, this is obviously anecdotal, but we're doing it live right now. MiniMax seems like it only thinks for a maximum of like two or 3 seconds. Usually it's 1 second or less. So that's very fast. Okay, so it says it fixed the error. Let's head back to our game. So this is the working one. This is on the deploy. So we don't want that. And this is the broken one. So we can see, all right, we're in the local development environment. This is the app. The big ugly area is gone. We got this beautiful start game menu. So we're past bug number 1, and let's go ahead and see what happens now. So I'm here. Okay, when we hover over the start game, it lights up. There's this little animation, but nothing happens when I click it. Okay, so I wonder what that could be. Let's go back over to VS Code, and we'll say, well, so first of all, something I love about debugging with AI, I mean, I guess this is just vibe engineering in general, is that you can just describe the problem the way you describe it to a coworker, or the way that you describe it to a friend who isn't technical or has never coded before. You don't have to format it perfectly or give it the exact error message like we did in the first one. You can just tell it what's happening, tell it what's happening in your experience, and then it can use reasoning to infer the rest. So we'll say the game shows up now with the start game button, but when I click it, nothing happens. The button does seem to react visually when I hover and click, but the game never actually starts. Is there something wrong with the button? All right, so we're kind of playing a little dumb here, but this is just to give you the full range of debugging scenarios and prompts that you could give to get an effective result. So we're in debug mode. We're in MiniMax M2. We'll send that off, and I'll narrate what's going on. So it thought for 1 second, it says it needs to debug why the start game isn't working. Searching the code base for the game start management. It's reading some files. It's thinking some more. Okay, it thinks it's identified the root cause of the issue. The start game button in UI overlay file calls on click to on restart, but the on restart function in game container calls set game start. But the game only starts when game state equals playing. So to summarize that, the logic is backwards. When clicking start game, it should change the game state from playing. It's changed the game state to playing, not back to start. So the restart functionality, which it's currently using, should only be used after the game is won or the player loses. So the proposed fix is to create a handle start game function that sets the state to playing and use it for the start game button. I have a feeling that it's already done with the whole thing. If we scroll down a little bit, oh, okay. So it's asking us if we have consent to fix it. So we'll say yes, fix it. It's thinking it's going to fix the code. It's saying it needs to pass the handle start game function to the UI overlay. Needs to update some props. And finally update the start game button to use the correct function. And so I'm just going to go back over to the chat for a second. Someone said, it is pretty great. I use it a lot for debugging Rails and React Native code, also fixing PR reviews and implementing new features. Yeah, it sounds a lot like, proceed anyway. Sounds a lot like what our users have said about it as well. Like those sort of tasks that are quick implementations, debugging, especially like with apps that may have some technical debt, like Rails apps or whatever else. And of course we had to get a little error message there because that's the nature of a live demo, right? So start game button fix complete. Let's verify that. So we'll come here. Okay, it did something. It started something, but we can see that as soon as we click start, and I'll refresh so we can show it again. There's nothing on the screen. It's a blank screen and the game just ends. So I think we're on to bug number 3 now. and we'll try to figure out what's the cause of this. So, okay, we'll say, and another thing to note here, if we look at the logs, so we have some errors from our earlier troubles with that first big error here in the console, but or in the terminal, but no errors for what just happened. So if we click that again, and I'll reveal this. So we start game. No errors here. So that's, that can be problematic. Oh, and it looks like when we resize the screen that some graphics show up. So that's interesting too. But we'll go back to VS Code and we'll say, okay, that error is fixed. Now the page loads and the start button does something. But I only see, let's see what we see when we click start. Okay, so it looks like we only see these like little UI features and then the game over message. So I only see the UI with the title and controls over a black screen. There's no game canvas. And it doesn't give me the opportunity to play. Okay, send that off. It's thinking. Okay, I need to debug why the game canvas isn't visible. So someone asked real quick, I'm just going to read the comments. Can you let Kilo somehow control the browser for testing instead of you doing it? Yes, you can. I put special instructions for it to not control its own browser just because I want it to show in our browser and it's a little more visible. But it will do that. It will test it on its own, Kilo, if you don't specify not to. So that's a great question. I just think for the purpose of the demo, it's better to show it on the big on the big browser. Okay, so analysis complete, and that was about 5, maybe less than 10 seconds. I found the issue. The problem is in the game canvas component. Canvas dimensions start at 0 by 0. Initial resize is missing. This means the canvas never gets proper dimensions and remains invisible. The resize event listener is set up but never triggered. So it's proposing to add the handle resize call so the canvas gets the correct window dimension. So we'll say, yes, that's okay. And this is actually a really common pattern in React canvas work. The canvas needs explicit dimensions. If those dimensions are wrong or 0, you won't see anything. The element is there. It's just 0 pixels wide and 0 pixels tall. So that kind of bug can kind of make you feel a little bit crazy, right? Because there's no error. The code is working technically. It's just working with the wrong values. So it says that the canvas visibility fix is complete. Let's hop back over. We'll refresh. And it's true. There it is. There's the level. But we're still dying immediately. And it looks like our avatar is way over here in the corner and falling to its early demise as soon as the game starts. So it looks like we're on our 4th bug here. Okay, let's go back to VS Code. We'll say the start button works now, and the game is running and visible. The monsters are moving, I saw, but the player starts below the starting platform. So the game ends immediately. It's so intimidating to type in front of an audience. I'm a terrible typist. But okay, we're going to send that off. So it wants to search for level data for the platform and the initial position of the player. Thinking. And again, it's really thinking for like a maximum of like 2 or 3 seconds, which is really fast. If you ever use, okay, it just did 4, of course, to one up me. But if you ever use like these bigger frontier models that have like really intensive reasoning, that time can be a lot longer. So it found the issue. The start marker in level data file is at y coordinate 600, but there's a starting platform at y 450. The player is positioned at the start marker's coordinate, which puts them below the platform instead of on it. Shall I fix this? Yes, please. Someone said, shoot, I'm late. I'll be that person. Will we get a recording? Of course. There's always a recording. We post it on YouTube, X, and it's available. We'll email you a recording link, and all of our webinars as of the past couple weeks are recorded too. So you can always go back and watch them. We've done a couple great ones on Gemini 3, Claude Opus 4.5, new stealth model Spectre. We're doing another one next week on Copilot versus Kilo. So tune in for that. But here we go. Player positioning fix complete. Let's verify that, shall we? And there it is. He, she starts on the platform. Kilo, I guess it's Kilo Man. He starts on the platform. And let's try to play. And you can't see my fingers, but I'm typing on the arrow keys and it's not moving. So there's bug number 5, right? Potentially. We'll go back to VS Code. Someone said, thank God it's 2 a.m. here and I was starting to lose my sanity. Hey, I mean, debugging can do that to people, right? So we'll say in the chat, I can see the player character now, but the arrow keys don't do anything. Don't do anything. I can't move. And the character, I'll say, can't move, but the character is bobbing. So I know the game loop is running. I just can't move with the arrow keys. Send that off. And I'm curious, I'll ask a question for the chat. How many of you are and have used MiniMax before? And how many of you haven't? And furthermore, how many of you haven't used Kilo before? I'm just curious. Okay, so that was, I lost track of this because I was asking a question, but in 5-6 seconds, it found the issue. There's a case sensitivity problem with the keyboard input. The keys are being stored as arrow left, but being checked as arrow left, or excuse me, are being stored as arrow left with camel case capitalization, but being checked as arrow left, all lowercase. This means the movement conditions are always false. Shall I fix this by converting the key codes to lowercase in the movement logic? We'll say yes. Someone said, I used it a few times, used Kilo a few times, have an account with some credits, might play with connecting Kilo to LM Studio for fun. That'd be cool. People do that. And, also when you attend these webinars, we give away credits a lot of the time. So that's another reason to tune in. And I'm glad you've given it a shot. Someone else said, using MiniMax since day one till Spectre came out, been testing Spectre for the past few days. Shane, I'm curious, the prompts you write are surprisingly casual. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think there's different kinds of debugging, right? There's this vibe engineering angle, which is kind of where trying to debug the game when we don't actually know what's wrong. So basically, I'm trying to expose MiniMax's ability to infer the problem, to not just when we understand the problem and tell it exactly what to do, but actually perform the debugging where it locates what the technical problem is. So maybe for the next one, we can give a little bit more of a technical prompt for you, Shane, because that's a good point and I appreciate that. So keyboard input fix complete. Let's test that out. We're going to refresh and there we go. We can move, but I'm slamming the space bar and we can't jump and we died. So let's go back to VS Code and say, I think there's a problem with the space bar. bar, I can't jump. That's not really a technical prompt for you, Shane, but for the next one we'll do it because this is a pretty simple and intuitive problem to give MiniMax. So we'll send that off. Someone said I tried MiniMax for orchestration, but quickly reverted to Claude Opus 4.5. But I used MiniMax for Ask and Debug, and if I recall, it was awesome. And you used Kilo to fix bugs on your site, rehearsenow.ai. Very cool. Um, okay, so it seems like there's a sensitivity issue with the space key as well. So we'll jump to fix that. Someone said I used MiniMax for a few weeks ago when they gave it for free for a few days. MiniMax itself with Cloud Code, and for a few days with Kilo when it was free. Kilo is interesting, especially with visualization, the task breakdown on the top. I'm guessing this is what you're talking about. I used it to make smaller helper apps, both with Claude and Kilo. Then I kind of hit the limit. Maybe it was my prompting or something, but ended up using Google Gemini 3 for one specific app because I was tight on time. Definitely a great model. Yeah, I feel like that mirrors the experience of a lot of what I've heard people have had with MiniMax. So using it, in times where convenience is really important, and testing it out during these free trial periods, which we love because we get to hear about what people think about it. So we'll start the game, and we still can't jump. Let me refresh. So maybe there's another, there's another bug causing the space problem. So we'll go back to Kilo. Will say, nope, we still can't jump. The space bar does nothing. So they said, let me investigate why the space bar isn't working. There might be another issue with collision detection affecting whether the player is considered grounded. So then it found the exact issue. In the collision detection logic at line 382, when the player lands on a platform from above, it incorrectly sets player is grounded to false. This should be true when landing. The player is never getting marked as grounded after landing, so they can never jump. Should I fix this? Yes. So it's thinking. And just as a reminder, we're giving 5 people who attend this webinar $100 in Kilo credit. So I haven't forgot about that. And we're also going to announce the other 2 winners from the Spectre giveaway for 500 credits. So if you're, hoping to be a winner, stick around till the end. I mean, I know we're probably going to go a little over time. So if you stay for this long, you're still eligible. Don't worry about that. But no pressure. But I'm excited to reveal that in the end. All right, so the space bar jump was fixed, it says. Oh, yep, there we go. Jumping away. So I know this is very stressful for me because I know where the last bug is, and I have to get to the end of the game to find it. So I'm gonna explore my dreams of becoming a Twitch streamer here with the gaming and the live chat, and we'll try to get to the end in a couple tries. And if not, I'll just probably have to spoil it for you. Okay. I should have this game mastered by now. And you'd fall. I appreciate that. Oh, wow. First try. Okay. Oh, so actually, the first, the final bug, this is interesting. Pro moment there. I appreciate that. So the final bug that I had implemented, and this is a cute kudos to MiniMax's debugging verbosity, it was that the ending should not have appeared. So in the original debugged version that I implemented, there was no ending gate, and the game could never end. So what I would have done is gone back to VS Code, and this is the quirkiness of a live demo, and let it know that the goal entity type, which ends the game, was not on. So I'm guessing at some point, and maybe we can review that. It at some point it also changed that during it noticed that there was a bug and changed that during the session. So there we go. It solved a bug that I didn't even specifically mention or request it to solve, but it knew it was a bug and it got it done. Accidentally fixed the bug, yeah. And like I said, this is, non-deterministic. I could have tested this a million times and never knew how it went. But if we just look back on how it did go, we solved 7 bugs in about 15 minutes with me yapping through a lot of that. So it was probably more like 5 minutes, solving 7 critical bugs in this game. And so I wanted to show you all. Someone said, is that a good thing or a bad thing, though, if it's doing something you didn't ask it to? Well, to get more technical, one of the things that caused the original bug of not being able to enter the finish gate was the collision mechanics. So in this last debugging effort here, it fixed the player is grounded and true, and also fixed the collision detection logic. So those 2 final bugs were kind of related. I didn't specifically mention the gate, but it probably saw that this issue extended to the finish gate and made a reasonable decision to fix that bug. So yeah, you're right. Sometimes you have to prevent over engineering, but in a situation where one bug maybe has some seep and overlap into a different issue, I don't think it's a bad thing that it went ahead and resolved that. However, I wanted to show you all this process of discovering bugs one at a time as you navigate the development of a product, because this is a very real scenario, right? Whether it's testing something you've built, something a teammate passed along to you, something a junior developer on your team wanted you to test or review. And something we do at Kilo also is release a feature to some early testers, which you can sign up for at kilo.ai/next and have them try it out and discover bugs as they come. But you're not always going to know there are bugs like we didn't, like we assumed we didn't. But let's say that we did know that this game was just chock full of bugs. And let's say we want MiniMax to take out any bugs it can find all at once. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment, and I'm going to pull up another clone version with the same bugs, and we're going to test if MiniMax can locate them all at once and do it in as few iterations as possible. Okay. Just going to pull up. Someone said this is going to be fun. I agree. All right. Debug. I just have to find the project in my terribly messy desktop. Um, that's right. Fix everything. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So someone just asked a great question, which I'm excited that they did. They said, is there an easy workflow for, say, having 3 Kilo instances orchestrating 3 different debugging approaches? So I have 3 different versions to test. Yes, there is. So right now we have parallel agents in the CLI, which means that you can run multiple agents working on the same task. But down the line, and you can see this at kilo.ai.next and sign up to be an early tester, we're going to have parallel agents in the IDE and eventually parallel agents that can work on the same project with 3 different approaches. And then you can pick the branch or work tree that you want to proceed with. So that's coming. And you can already do parallel agents in the CLI. So great question. I'm glad you asked it. All right. So we have Kiloman bugged one shot here, which is our boilerplate bugged version that we're going to try to do it all in one go. So we're going to say This game doesn't work. It's full of bugs. It's not playable in any way from both a functional and logical standpoint. Locate every bug, audit for logical playability issues and UX pitfalls, and fix everything. Sad voice. Okay, so we're on debug mode. We're on MiniMax M2. And I actually haven't frankly, I haven't tested this. So this is a true live demo. There we go. Okay, so it's going to examine the code base to figure out the structure and identify the issue. It's searching for React Canvas player movement collection, collision detection, excuse me, which we know is a bug. So that's off to a good start. I'm just going to end the, I'm going to terminate the other project. So we're ready to launch this one in the browser. Someone said, is this one going to use the browser for testing? No, we're going to do it the same way. We're just going to launch my local browser just so that's easier for people to see, because when it tests in the browser, it opens this little browser window in the chat, and it can be difficult to see over screen sharing, but good question. Someone said, and I'm going to talk while it's thinking here. Someone said, do you have some insight into how MiniMax is usable in terms of context length? My general feeling with models is that it's usually way smaller than official length, and this is very noticeable when doing programming simply because mistakes in syntax results in critical failure. That hasn't been my experience with MiniMax. So I think it has like a 200,000 context input window, token window, which I felt is accurate. I feel like you can actually do more in that window than I expected. So I'm curious if you used it, if you had that same experience. Okay. So that was, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, probably less. And it says it's identified and fixed 7 critical bugs in the game. So there were 7. Bug 1, client directive removed. So that was the first bug. It deleted the use client directive from line 1. Canvas dimensions are correctly set to width 0, height 0. Start button loop fixed. Change the restart to start. Player spawn location, key input case, ground flag, goal type mismatch. Okay, so that was all of the bugs that I had originally put in. So that's pretty impressive that I got all 7 like that. I'm gonna launch that version. I gotta stop sharing just because I gotta run it. And okay. Someone said if this works, I'll be very impressed. It used half the tokens. Spoiler, I just pulled it up and it looks pretty good. We'll share. Okay. Here we go. So I just clicked start game. So that works. The start button works. We can move, we can jump, we can run. Let's give it another try, see if we can get to the end and see if that. So it started, the player started in the right place. I actually did not expect this to happen, frankly. I'm pretty impressed. So We're going to the end here. Wow, I'm locked in. There it is. Okay. So it did it. I mean, it did it in one shot. I mean, this is uh someone said I've done this before. Well, it's true. Um so yeah, I mean, it just resolved all 7 critical bugs in one shot, and that was also what was reflected in our original tests by my colleague Darko when he implemented a bunch of bugs into a Go app and it resolved them all right away. Um so someone said that's clutch. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to switch back over to the slides quickly, so we can wrap up because I know we're going over time, and I really appreciate everyone joining. If you have to go, I completely understand. We'll be sharing the winners of the giveaways, online as well. So no need to stay if you have somewhere to go. But we're gonna go to the slides. Someone said it's not mentioned in the code where it just could grep the implementation bug text or so. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're saying like that, there's like that it was grepping some like pre-ordered bug list, that's not true. Because like in the previous version too, it probably would have just grepped and read that and solved all the bugs in one go too when we were doing them one by one. I understand why you'd be a little bit skeptical though, because that actually makes sense. Or I mean, it makes sense that you're impressed because I'm impressed too. So, okay. Key takeaways: the game went from a fully busted, bug riddled mess to perfectly functional in 1 to 2 prompts in about 30 seconds. So, I personally understand why so many users are praising MiniMax M2 for its debugging and implementation abilities and why it's becoming a crucial part of a lot of people's workflows. So, to summarize, we just fixed 7 bugs ranging from framework misconfiguration to invisible white space. And what I want to highlight is how MiniMax M2 approached each one. First, speed, right? Went through 7 bugs and 15 minutes of recording time with me talking, and 30 seconds when we tried to one shot it. It understood context. I didn't have to give it like exact error messages or format my questions perfectly. I could give vague, human messages and prompts in natural language, and it understood what I meant. It caught the subtle issues, like the case sensitivity bug. Those are just the kind of things that could take a human hours to find by just staring at the code. And Minimax caught them very quickly because it's actually reading and analyzing the code, not just pattern matching on obvious errors. And one more thing I want to mention is that one of our survey respondents said that they use Minimax M2 to debug issues by just describing symptoms. That's exactly what we did here for most part. You don't need to know what's wrong because that's part of debugging, right? You don't always know what's wrong. You just need to describe what's happening and that's kind of the beauty of AI coding, right? You just need to describe and it can infer a lot of the other stuff. Someone said, is this webinar being recorded? It is, and the recording will be available later. So someone asked, who is this for? Or excuse me, who is this for? I believe it's for anyone who codes, but especially if you're working with a large code base and you need fast answers, not philosophical dissertations on software architecture, right? Minimax is your friend, especially if you're on a budget and you can't afford to burn through tokens on Claude Opus for every little bug. Minimax is currently free, and even at regular pricing, it's a fraction of the cost of frontier models. So if you already know what the problem is, and you just need help pinpointing it, that's what one of our users called in the survey. Knowing the source of the problem, you give Minimax the context, and it helps you find the exact fix. So if you're doing any kind of iterative debugging work where you're making changes, testing, finding new issues, making more changes, you want a fast model. You don't want to wait 2 minutes between each iteration. And you probably don't want to wait for me to finish talking too, which I'm sure a lot of you are already feeling. But So if you want to try MiniMax yourself, you can download Kilo Code. We've got extensions for VS Code, JetBrains, and a CLI. Sign up for a free account. Select MiniMax M2 free from the model dropdown and start debugging. So it's currently the number 3 most used on Kilo. So people are finding real value in it. And then so recap, I kind of just went through that, so I'm going to skip this slide for the sake of time. But this past Wednesday, we hosted a webinar about the new stealth model, which is also free, called Spectre, which is from one of the top 10 AI labs in the world. And it's a mystery who it is, but we prompted our users to show what they built with Spectre and have the chance to win $500 in Kilo credit. So we already announced one during that webinar, but now I have the other 2 winners. So the first is at Chaos Drop on X, who created a net image generator that allows you to choose from different AI image generation models to create an image. And we like that because we're all about open model selection here at Kilo Code. As you know, you can choose any model you want for any use case. So props to you, Chaos Drop. Very cool creation. And you'll be getting the credits this afternoon. And the next winner, I'm very happy to say, was I'm just going to spell it out because that's also the wrong name. So I apologize. But is UZVERUA on X, who built this emotion visualizer where you can type in an emotion and get like this animation about how it feels to feel that emotion. I guess like a swirling visualizer where that was built with Spectre, and you can see kind of the emotion colors, fluctuating through. It's very cool. We reposted it on X, so you can go look at the actual animation there. It's much cooler than the still image, but props to you. You'll be getting the $500 credits as well. And then just to go over the other winner that we had, that we already announced, Andrew Stair, who built a very cool app that tracks traffic in his local neighborhood by using the free open data from his city that tracks cars passing by tracing the MAC addresses of Bluetooth devices as they pass on the road. So basically, he gets a push notification via this app when his road is busy, telling him not to travel during that time, which I thought was super interesting. And then, of course, you can always join the conversation on Reddit or Discord. Here are the QR codes to join up on those. And we love to hear what you think about MiniMax. We'd love to hear what you think about Spectre, or just your thoughts about Kilo in general. We're always listening. Being open source, we feel that community is very important. So that's why we do these webinars. That's why we have spaces for everyone to chat and talk about AI coding together. So join the conversation there. And I know we're way over time, so I really appreciate everyone joining. And I want to answer the last few questions, and then we'll finish up. Is Spectre good for anyone else? I've not had any luck so far. So I mean, yeah, I built a pretty cool version of Kilo Man, of course, with Spectre in one go, which was I was pretty impressed by. But yeah, I'm curious to hear everyone else's thoughts as well. Someone said, I enjoy working with fast models, Sebastian. Since Composer and Windsurf's model came out, I finally get to finish so fast, not like 15 minutes of thinking from OpenAI models. Definitely. Totally makes sense. Someone said, that's a good point. Pace of iteration is really important in debugging, especially if it means giving up a bit of accuracy or comprehensiveness. And I think I agree with that, right? Like sometimes it's faster to get the problem solved by iterating on almost getting there a bunch of times quickly than one long session of getting there right away. I mean, in this example, obviously it did it in one shot, but yeah, that's a good point. Someone said, "Thanks a lot. First Kilo presentation, definitely not the last." Well, I really appreciate that, Sebastian, and we love hosting these. We're gonna do a bunch more. It's pretty much weekly at this point, so stay tuned for the next one, which is on Wednesday. I'll be joined by my colleague Brendan, who also has hosted a bunch of webinars here. We'll talk about comparing Copilot with Kilo. So I think that's where I'm going to call it. I know we're way over time. I really appreciate everyone joining. I'm going to be messaging the 5 people who win the $100 of credits later today or tomorrow, and you'll be able to start using those right away. And I'll be giving the $500 to those who won that contest as well. So thanks everybody, and I hope to see you all soon.